Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. In our last podcast, we concluded through a lot of forensic evidence that the group of people being discussed in Revelation chapter 20, verses 4 through 6 are and can only be the called and chosen and faithful, the wife of Christ. Then we started with our commercial break. The text in Revelation jumps from this description of the called, chosen, and faithful to the end of the 1,000 years. But what happens during those 1,000 years? It's a long time to just skip over. Thankfully, the Codex fills in the blanks, and we've been addressing the events of this millennial period. Let's pick back up with the renewal of the world. Episode 171, a commercial break, continued. The world is renewed. Let's take a glimpse of what practical life on earth will be like during Jesus' millennial reign. The earth. The event unleashed with the seventh bowl of wrath results in a significant reconstruction of the physical earth. There were earthquakes, the mountains were crushed, islands disappeared, cities were split, and huge hailstones pummeled the earth. In so doing, Yahweh altered the fundamental construct of the world's ecosystem. Oddly enough, the earth was prepared for his return and prepped for its own healing. In fact, all of creation has been waiting for this time of glorious freedom from death and decay. The impact of these changes will be phenomenal and so dramatic that the picture that is painted for us is like a dream. The moon will be as bright as the sun, and the sun will be 7 times brighter, like the light of 7 days in one. So it will be when Yahweh begins to heal his people and cure the wounds he gave them. The sources of light will no longer shine, yet there will be continuous day. There'll be no normal day and night, for at evening time it will still be light. On that day, life-giving waters will flow out from Jerusalem, half towards the Dead Sea and half towards the Mediterranean, flowing continuously in both summer and winter. All the land from Geba, north of Judah, to Rimnon, south of Jerusalem, will become one vast plain, indicating that the mountains will indeed be leveled. Jerusalem will be raised up in its original place and will be inhabited all the way from Benjamin Gate over to the side of the Old Gate, then to the Corner Gate, and from the Tower of Hanel to the King's Wine Press. And Jerusalem will be filled, safe at last, never again to be cursed and destroyed. The wolf and the lamb will live together. The leopard will lie down with the baby goat. The calf and the yearling will be safe with the lion, and the little child will lead them all. The cow will graze near the bear. The cub and the calf will lie down together. The lion will eat hay like a cow. The baby will play safely near the hole of a cobra. Yes, a little child will put its hand in a nest of deadly snakes without harm. Nothing will hurt or destroy in all of God's holy mountain, for as the waters fill the sea, so the earth will be filled with people who know Yahweh. The wilderness will become a fertile field, and the fertile field will yield bountiful crops. Justice will rule in the wilderness, and righteousness in the fertile field, and this righteousness will bring peace, quietness, and confidence forever. God's people will live in safety, quietly at home. They will be at rest. Even if the forest should be destroyed and the city torn down, Yahweh will greatly bless his people. Wherever they plant seed, bountiful crops will spring up. Their cattle and donkeys will graze freely. There'll be a significant altercation to the land and the ecosystem, including to the animal kingdom. The sun will not be needed as Jesus will provide us light. The fear of darkness will be removed as his light will continually shine and will replace the light of the moon. Life will be extended and the earth will be fruitful. This will be an amazing time of peace, rest, safety, and security. God will exalt Jerusalem and Mount Zion, where he will personally dwell. and he will begin to heal all the wounds which his people have suffered. Mount Zion. Mount Zion was called the city of David, the city of the great king. Its exact location is questioned by scholars, but Yahweh intends on establishing his earthly throne on this mount. Mount Zion is located to the north, or to the northern side of Jerusalem, and it is there that Yahweh will dwell on Mount Zion. In fact, it's such a special place that those who trust in Yahweh are likened to Mount Zion, which cannot be moved but abides forever. Therefore, regarding Yahweh's holy mountain, he says, "The moon will be abashed and the sun ashamed, for Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and his glory will be before his elders. Yahweh will remove all proud and arrogant people. There'll be no more haughtiness on his holy mountain. Those who are left will be the lowly and humble, for it is they who trust in the name of Yahweh. Jerusalem will be a place of happiness. Her people will be a source of joy. Yahweh will answer prayers before people call to him. The sound of weeping and crying will be heard in it no more. No longer will babies die when only a few days old. No longer will adults die before they have lived a full life. No longer will people be considered old at 100. Only the cursed will die that young. People will live in the houses they build and eat the fruit of their own vineyards. Invaders will not take their houses and confiscate their vineyards, for God's people will live as long as trees, and his chosen ones will have time to enjoy their hard-won gains. The wolf and the lamb will feed together. The lion will eat hay like cow, but the snakes will eat dust. In those days, no one will be hurt or destroyed on God's holy mountain. All who remain in Zion will be a holy people, those who survive the destruction of Jerusalem and are recorded among the living. Yahweh will wash the filth from beautiful Zion and cleanse Jerusalem of its bloodstains with the hot breath of fiery judgment. Then Yahweh will provide shade for Mount Zion and all who assemble there. He will provide a canopy of cloud during the day and smoke and flaming fire at night, covering the glorious land. It'll be a shelter from daytime heat and a hiding place from storms and rain. Isaiah chapter 2, verses 2 through 4. The house of Yahweh will be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be lifted up above the hills, and all the nations shall flow to it. And many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and shall decide disputes for many peoples. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Everyone will live in peace and prosperity, enjoying their own grapevines and fig trees, for there will be nothing to fear." Israel. The land of Israel is a favorite subject when it comes to Scripture dealing with this millennial period. God has made so many promises about the land. After all, he deems it to be his land. Therefore, he intends on fulfilling each and every promise he has ever made concerning the land. The land of Judah will be Yahweh's special possession in the Holy Land, and he will once again choose Jerusalem to be his own city. There'll be streams of water flowing down every mountain and hill. The wasteland will rejoice and blossom with spring crocuses. There'll be an abundance of flowers and singing and joy. The deserts will become as green as the mountains of Lebanon. Springs will gush forth in the wilderness, and streams will water the wasteland. The parched grounds will become a pool, and springs of water will satisfy the thirsty land. A great road will go through that once deserted land. It will be named the Highway of Holiness. The prophet Isaiah tells us that this highway will go from Egypt to Assyria, and that Egypt, Assyria, and Israel will be joined in a special alliance, and they will all worship Yahweh. Many have thought that this Highway of Holiness speaks of a modern-day revival amongst the Muslims from Egypt to Assyria. However, Isaiah adds additional detail to clarify that this highway will be established during the millennial period. Therefore, regarding this Highway of Holiness, it says that evil-minded people will never travel on it. It will be only for those who walk in God's ways. Fools will never walk there. Lions will not lurk along its course, nor any other ferocious beast. There will be no other dangers. Only the redeemed will walk on it. Those who have been ransomed by Yahweh will return. They will enter Jerusalem singing, crowned with everlasting joy. Sorrow and mourning will disappear, and they will be filled with joy and gladness. Yahweh will also make a dry path through the gulf of the Red Sea. He will wave his hand over the Euphrates River, sending a mighty wind to divide it into 7 streams so that it can be easily crossed on foot. He'll make a highway for the remnant of his people, the remnant coming from Assyria, just as he did for Israel long ago when they returned from Egypt. In that day, Judah will be saved, and Israel will live in safety. When people take an oath, they will say, "As surely as Yahweh lives, who brought the people of Israel back to their own land from the land of the north and from all the countries to which he had exiled them. Then they will live in their own land." Yahweh will be a refuge for his people, a strong fortress for the people of Israel. Jerusalem will be holy forever, and foreign armies will never conquer her again. In that day, the mountains will drip with sweet wine, and the hills will flow with milk. Water will fill the stream beds of Judah, and a fountain will burst forth from Yahweh's temple, watering the arid valley of acacias. Egypt will become a wasteland, and Edom will become a wilderness. But Judah will be filled with people forever, and Jerusalem will endure through all generations. Yahweh will pardon the crimes of his people and make his home in Jerusalem with his people. Yahweh will restore the fallen house of David and repair its damaged walls and restore its former glory. Israel will possess what is left of Edom and all the nations who are called by his name. The grain and grapes will grow faster than they can be harvested. The terraced vineyards on the hills of Israel will drip with sweet wine. Behold, days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I will fulfill the good word which I have spoken concerning the house of Israel and the house of Judah. In those days and at that time, I will cause a righteous branch of David to spring forth, and he shall execute justice and righteousness on the earth. In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell in safety. And this is the name by which she will be called: the Yahweh Sidkenu. The Lord is our righteousness. Egypt. It is interesting that Israel's ancient foe, Egypt, is also specifically addressed in the scriptures. God has a very soft heart for the Egyptian people, and despite their rebellion, a remnant of Egyptians will be preserved. They'll be treated differently than the people of Edom, the descendants of Esau. The people of Edom, which were in modern day, or at this time in the millennial, we're in modern day Jordan, will be judged and wiped off the face of the earth because of the merciless way they opposed the nation of Israel. But for Egypt, there will be grace. 5 of Egypt's cities will follow Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies. They'll even begin to speak Hebrew, the language of Canaan. One of these cities will be Heliopolis, the city of the sun. There'll be an altar to Yahweh in the heart of Egypt, and there will be a monument to Yahweh at its border. It will be a sign and a witness that Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies, is worshipped in the land of Egypt. Yahweh will make himself known to the Egyptians. They will know Yahweh and will give their sacrifices and offerings to him. They'll make a vow to Yahweh and will keep it. Yahweh will strike Egypt, and then he will bring healing. For the Egyptians will turn to Yahweh, and he will listen to their pleas and heal them. The nations. The blessings are not just reserved for Israel and Egypt, but Yahweh speaks graciously over those who are saved from the other nations in the world. Yahweh will purify the speech of all people so that everyone can worship Yahweh together. Yahweh will live among his people. Many nations will join themselves to Yahweh on that day, and they too will be his people. The eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf unplugged. The lame will leap like a deer, and those who cannot speak will sing for joy. Those who survive the plague of judgment will go up to Jerusalem each year to worship the King, Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies, and to celebrate the festival of shelters. Any nation in the world that refuses to come to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies, will have no rain. Egypt and the other nations will be punished if they don't go to celebrate the festival of shelters. Then Even the harness bells of the horses will be inscribed with these words, Holy to Yahweh, and the cooking pots in the temple of Yahweh will be as sacred as the basins used beside the altar. Every cooking pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies. All who come to worship will be free to use any of these pots to boil their sacrifices. And on that day, there will no longer be traitors in the temple of Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies. The Jew. Then there are very specific promises made to the Jews. God elected them as his chosen people, and he will fulfill every word he ever spoke over them. The Jews whose hearts were hardened to Yahweh will be judged along with the nations. But there will be a remnant whom he will make holy or set apart to be his very own people. Yahweh will not destroy all Israel, for just as good grapes are found among a cluster of bad ones, and someone will say, don't throw them all away, some of those grapes are good, so he will not destroy all Israel. He has true servants there, and he will preserve a remnant of the people of Israel and of Judah to possess the land. The survivors will bring the remnant of Yahweh's people back from every nation. They'll bring them to my holy mountain and in Jerusalem as an offering to Yahweh. They will ride on horses, in chariots and wagons, and on mules and camels, says Yahweh. And I will appoint some of them to be my priests and Levites. I, Yahweh, have spoken. Yahweh will bring his people back again from all the countries where he scattered them in his fury. He'll bring them back to Jerusalem and let them live in peace and safety. They will be his people, and he will be their God. He will give them one heart and one purpose, to worship Yahweh forever, for their own good and for the good of all their descendants. Yahweh will make an everlasting covenant with them. He will never stop doing good for them. He will put a desire in their hearts to worship him, and they will never leave him. Yahweh will find joy doing good for them and will faithfully and wholeheartedly replant them in this land. Yahweh will heal his people of their faithlessness. His love will know no bounds, for his anger will be gone forever. He'll be to Israel like a refreshing dew from heaven. Israel will blossom like the lily. Israel's branches will spread out like beautiful olive trees, as fragrant as the cedars of Lebanon. Yahweh's people will live under his shade. They will flourish like grain and blossom like grapevines. They'll be as fragrant as the wines of Lebanon. Yahweh will bring his people of Israel back from distant lands, and they will rebuild their ruined cities and live in them again. They will plant vineyards and gardens, and they will eat their crops and drink their wine. They will never again be uprooted from the land. The remnant of Israel will do no wrong. They'll never tell lies or deceive one another. They will eat and sleep in safety, and no one will make them afraid. Yahweh himself, the King of Israel, will live among his people. At last, their troubles will be over, and they will never again fear disaster. Yahweh will take delight in his people with gladness. With his love, he will calm all their fears, and he will rejoice over them with joyful songs. He will gather those who mourn for the appointed festivals, and they will be disgraced no more. He will bring together those who were chased away and give glory and fame to former exiles, wherever they have been mocked and shamed. He will give his people a good name, a name of distinction among all the nations of the earth as he restores their fortunes. Yahweh will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and prayers for mercy, so that when they look on him whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him, as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly over him, as one weeps over a firstborn. There shall be a fountain open for the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, to cleanse them from sin and uncleanness. Yahweh will cut off the names of the idols from the land, so that they shall be remembered no more, to remove from the land the prophets and the spirit of uncleanness. If anyone again prophesies, his father and mother who bore him will say to him, You shall not live, for you speak lies in the name of Yahweh. And his father and mother who bore him shall pierce him through when he prophesies. The King. During the 1,000 years, Jesus will reign as king over the entire earth, and there will be no other. His monarchy will be the only governmental structure in the world. Righteousness and justice will be known and experienced by all. It will be a time of unparalleled peace and rest amongst the people of the world. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies, will make this happen. And Yahweh will be king over all the earth. On that day, there'll be one, Yahweh. His name alone will be worshipped. The descendant from King David's line will be a king who rules with wisdom. He will do what is just and right throughout the land. His name will be Yahweh Sidkenu. The Lord is our righteousness. The righteous descendant from King David's line will do for Israel and Judah all the good things he has promised them. He will do what is just and right throughout the land. The bride, the wife of Christ. The role of the bondservants of Yahweh in the 1,000-year kingdom will be of great importance. They will be his princes and the administrators of his monarchy. And even though they will rule with rods of iron, they will be a blessing to the nations as they shepherd the people of the nations through this time. Look, a righteous king is coming, and honest princes will rule under him. Each one will be like a shelter from the wind and a refuge from the storm, like streams of water in the desert and the shadow of a great rock in a parched land. Then everyone who has eyes will be able to see the truth, and everyone who has ears will be able to hear it. Even the hotheads will be full of sense and understanding. Yahweh will give a spirit of justice to his judges and great courage to the warriors who stand at their gates. They will even judge angels. Note, we're not given the timing of this judgment, but it might be during these 1,000 years, since that is when his bondservants are seen on their thrones. Furthermore, it's not clear if they will judge the demonic spirits only, or also the angels that were assigned to their care. But either way, it's a heady role that is given to and reserved exclusively for the wife of Christ. The 1,000-year period, the millennial kingdom, will be an amazing time and something that we can only scarcely imagine. These passages provide just a glimpse, just the surface layer of the magnificent and incredible destiny of the bondservants of Jesus Christ. These passages reveal how big and loving Yahweh, the Lord our God, truly is. But as it is caused to be written, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who are now loving him. The seventh Feast of Israel. We're still on a commercial break, journeying through the millennial. If we were to link this 1,000-year period to the 7 prophetic feasts of Israel, as we did in Revelation chapter 1, we are on the 7th, or the final annual feast, the Feast of Tabernacles, also known as the Feast of Shelters. That connection is explicitly made without speculation in the Codex. The first 4 feasts all had their prophetic fulfillment before the events recorded in Revelation: Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Pentecost. Those were associated respectively with Jesus' death, his burial, his resurrection, and the pouring out of the Holy Spirit upon the church. The next 3 feasts, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles, are all prophetically connected with the events described in Revelation. Those are associated, respectively, with the rapture of the church, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of the Lord, or the time of Yahweh's wrath, the Day of Atonement, and the time that God will tabernacle or make his home among his people, the Feast of Tabernacles. This time of tabernacles literally begins with the rapture, since Jesus promised his people that he will come for them, and they will never leave his side and will always be where he is. It's a promise that is realized during the millennial kingdom when Jesus physically lives with his people, and it continues through eternity as the tabernacle of God is among men. Okay, let's stop here, and in our next podcast, we'll pick back up with our text in Revelation 20, with what occurs after this millennial period comes to completion. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.